Is Gemara Megillah Daf Chav Tes. Today's year has been generously sponsored as a tremendous chos for Shlema that's for Sarah Bas Kela. Mirz Hashem, the surgery should go successful and she should have a complete refuah Shlema Bekarei Mamish. As well as learning of the Tarech Habura should be as Chashidah for Zochayim the Virgin. Remember, as it's a Gidel, Translitz, Rajan Makul, the Mordechai, the Vishendel, the Gidel, the Vishendel, Shimon ben Chai, Shalom ben Levi Zahav, as well as chos for Shlema, shall use ben Nevader, Avram and Rachel Chaldea, Shimon ben Chana, Abigail, Beryl, Bas Esther, and Medaveg, Chaim, Azar, Shamziv, Rezel, Zerbas, Kanati, the Basim, as Chayesay, Yusel, Mendel, the Shalei, Shamas, Nami, Vijavik, Shekhan, Shmal, Batzildin, Khanrizim, Chai, Basnina, Adinah, Bajin, Minas, Vivek, Rev, Kav, Shema, Naftali, Zim, Chlas, Amr ben Yaakait, Shlomo ben Yisachar ben Esther, Yehudah, Shlomo. Yisachar ben Esther Yehudis. B'Soik Sha'ar Chali Yisrael. We're holding on. Chav Chesman Beis. We pulled up a little bit short, about 10 lines into the wide lines. First for the line is Ara di Yisrael. We just finished a discussion in which Rish Lakish said they hesped on a Talmid Chacham that used to give shiur to 24 rows of Talmidim in Eretz Yisrael. Now the Gemara continues with Rish Lakish. The Gemara continues contrasting, Rish Lakish with another Amayra. Ha'uda Veitani Elchas HaSifra V'Sifri V'Teisefta. There was someone who taught and he learned halacha sifra sifri teseft, incredible Talmid Chacham v'shachav, and he was nifter. Also, Ramli Rav Nachman, when they came to Rav Nachman, they said, "Listen, Mar, give a hesped, a wonderful Talmid Chacham." Amar Rav Nachman responded, "Eichen isbedei, how can I give a hesped? Hey, tzana." I should give a hesped on this basket full of bread that we have, a basket full of books that we have lost. What am I giving a hesped on? And Rashi explains, because it's true he learned a lot, but he didn't retain, he didn't understand it fully. And the Gemara comments, look at the contrast, the difference between the Takifi of Eretz Yisrael and the Chasidi of Bavel, how Rav Nachman wasn't willing to give such a hesped where Rish Lakish was. Says the Gemara, once we're on the topic of honoring Talmidei Chachamim, Tanan, also we learned in the Mishnah, about 10 lines at the bottom of the Amid, the first one, the line is Tanan. One who utilizes the crown of Torah, if you abuse the crown of Torah, chalaf, you're going to pass on from this world. This is if you use, if you enjoy, if you let a Talmid Chacham serve you, then chas v'shalom, you're going to pass from this world. Says the Gemara, Kisra Shal Torah, you're abusing the crown, the glorious crown of Torah. V'amar Ula, l'shtamish inish v'man Tani Arba, says Ula, it's better to use, let someone serve you who learned 4 of the books of Mishnayis, more than not to use one who has taught 4 of the books. Again, the higher level Talmid Chacham, you want to be more careful with his honor. And the Gemara says an incredible story about Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish was going in the road. Mata or Kuma Demaya, and Rish Lakish, as he's going in the road, he passes a pool of water. So a certain person comes by, scoops up Rish Lakish and carries Rish Lakish on his shoulders. But come Averle, and he's wading through the water with Rish Lakish on his shoulders, keeping him nice and dry. Amarle, so Rish Lakish calls down to the man carrying him. Karisa, have you learned Chumash? Amarle, Karina, I did. Tanisa, did you learn Mishnayis? Tinyana, Arba, Sidrei, Mish, I learned all 4 Mishnayis. So Amarle, Rish Lakish says down to him, Pesalt l'cha Arba, Turi, Vitainis bar Lakish akasvech, Shadi bar Lakisha b'maya. He said back to him, you've carved for yourself the 4 orders, and yet you carry Rish Lakish on your shoulders. Throw me into the water. Rish Lakish says, I don't want to get benefits like we saw. You don't want to abuse and misuse the crown of Torah. Says Rish Lakish, you've learned so much. Throw me into the water. Amar Le, so the man responds, Nichali dishtamin. Lamar, the man says, it's my pleasure, the schus to honor Rish Lakish. So Rish Lakish responds that if so, Gamar mina milsa. So let me at least teach you something, so at some level I'll be your Rebbe. Damar Rav Zera ben Yisrael in Echmira Latzot Shavila Rose Tivas Dan Kachardol Yoshevas Love Zayin Akim. Rish Lakish teaches the famous statement of Rav Zera that a girl who sees even 1 dot of blood, the weeks of Shavim, we've discussed these in Yanim, a woman who does a bedika on the bedika cloth is 1 teeny speck of blood, she sits and she has to wait. Zayin Nikiyim. Says the Gemara, 2 lines to the bottom, Tanit Velio, a very famous Gemara, Klashan halachas, anyone who learns halachas, Muftach loishu ben olam haba, he's a promise and he's assured that he will go to the next world. Haba shenemar alicha is olam loy, as the pasuk says, the ways of the world are his. Al tikri alicha is the ways. Ella halachas, one who learns halachas. Taner Rabbanan, now once we're on the topic of Talmidei Chachamim, we continue continue on to today's daf. Famous Gemara in Ksubis that we're mevatel. We stop learning for two things: for to give kavod to a dead person and to give kavod to a woman getting married. But explains the Gemara. It's only if the Levaya or the Chassan doesn't have the fitting amount of people, and the Gemara is about to explain the fitting amounts. If there's enough people at the Levaya, there's enough people at the Chasana, ain't mevatlin, don't be mevatel, you sit and learn. But now says the Gemara, what is fitting? A Levaya, how many people should attend? Amar Rav Shmuel bar Inya Mishmei Derav, Teresa Alfei Gavri, 12,000 men, Vashita Alfei Shibari, and 6,000 men carrying shofars, blowing shofar. V'amila, and some say Teresa Alfei Gavri, 12,000 men, and amongst them, Umanau Shita Alfei Shipuri. So it's either 12 and 6, 18,000 people, or 12 and of those 6,000 carrying shofar, an incredible amount that should attend each and every levaya. I want to point out, this is brought down in Shulchan Aruch, and many of the Mefarshim ask, so it sounds like we have to go to every single levaya. And there are difficult questions with different answers. One of the basic answers is if we go to every levaya, we wouldn't have any time to learn or do anything else. But we see the incredible kavod that is necessary. Says the Gemara 10 lines down in the Chavtas Amar Aleph, Ula Amar ki going to Chaisi Gavra me'avula atzichra. Says Ula for there should be men all the way from the town gate all the way to the cemetery. If Shishas Amar kinisasa kachna tilasa. Just like the giving of the Torah, same thing as when the Torah is taken away, when the Talmid Chacham is nifter. Just like the Torah was given with 600,000 Jews, there was by a Levaya there should be 600,000 Jews. That's one who learned Chomesh HaMishnayis. But someone who taught Mishnayis, no shear, everyone has to attend the Levaya. Tanya Rishim ben Yochai Omer Barei Kama Chavivin Yisrael Ne'akadosh Baruch Hu, look how beloved Klal Yisrael is to Hashem. Shebechol Makom Shekalu Shechina Imayim. Wherever we go into Galus, Hashem Ima Anoichi Mitzara. Hashem is with us in the Galus. Galu Mitzrayim Shechina Imayim. And we went to Mitzrayim this previous week's parashas. The Shechina is with us. Shenemar Haniglag Nigleisi LeBeis Avicha B'Yosef Mitzrayim, that He's redeemed with us. The pasuk says Galu LeBaba Shechina Imayim Shenemar LeManchem Shalachti Bivala. I was sent to Bavel. And so too says the Gemara, when we're eventually going to be redeemed, Shechina Iman, the Shechina is going to be redeemed with us, as Shavoscha, that Hashem will be returned with us. Ask the Gemara 1 second, doesn't say he'll bring back, but rather he will return. Hashem will come back with us from the Galus. Ask the Gemara, where is the Shechina? You are now in Galus, we're in Babel, where can we find the Shechina? Rabbi Bekenisha de Utzal, in the Shul in Utzal, Bekenisha de Shaf v'Yosef and Arda, or the basic Knesses. Now those words, the Shaf v'Yosef and Arda, literally mean that was destroyed and rebuilt in Arda, but as we're going to see for the rest of the Amid, that's referring to the Shul in Arda, the Shuls that were destroyed and then rebuilt. So says the Gemara, that's where the Shechina is. But the Gemara points out, Lo Tema, Hachav Achal, Zimnin Hachav, Zimnin Achal, the Shechina sometimes is in this place, and sometimes is in that. Amar Abaya, 3 lines to the white lines. Teisali, says Abaya, I should get schar in the next world. When I was 1 parsa away from one of these shuls, I would go and daven there. They were sitting in the shul that was destroyed and built in Ardai. Asa Shechina. Interesting what happened. The Shechina itself came to the shul. Shamu kol riksha. So Shmuel and Levi heard a voice of a commotion. Kamu v'nafku. They got up and they laughed. They heard the Shechina coming. Rav Sheshes Av Yosef Bekenishta. The Shav Yosef and Arda. He was sitting in that shul as well. Asa Shechina v'loy nafik. Rav Sheshes didn't get up. Asa Malachi Hasharis come about too late. The Malachi Hasharis came. They were trying to scare him. They were trying to get Rish Lakish to Rav Sheshes, to leave. Amr lefanav Rav Sheshes damens Hashem and the Rebbeinu Shalaylam. Allah v'sheinai Allah mi nilchem ibnei mi. We have the unfortunate one, myself, Rav Sheshes, and then we have the Malachi Asharis. Who should leave? Says Amr leho shavkua. Hashem says to the angels, leave him alone, let him stay in the shul. And now we see the incredible power of the shuls. V'ahei lahem the mikdash ma'at. And the pasuk Hashem tells Yechezkel, you know what? It's going to be for Klal Yisrael a mikdash ma'at, a small base of mikdash. They have the status of a small base of mikdash. For Rav Elazar Amar, Zeh Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel is the house of Rabbeinu. We see the incredible schos of housing of Talmid Chacham, that the house itself is called a mikdash ma'at. Darish Rava Darshan Ma'idach Siv. What is the meaning of the pasuk? Hashem Ma'ayin Atayisa Lanu. The pasuk says, Hashem, you've been the holy place for us. These are the shuls, and these are about the midrashai. So Amar Abaye, Mereish Avigarista Bebeisa Masalina Bekinishta. Originally, I would learn at home, and then I would go down in shul. But Kiva on the Shamas, the Hadikamer David, once I heard David Amalek, Hashem, Hashem, I love your house. Avigarista Bekinishta, so I would even learn in shul. Tanya Rav Elazar Akfar Aimer, 3 lines into the very light lines. Asidin Abatik Neisiyas Bati Medrash Bavel Sheiklu Beretz Yisrael, very famous Gemara. The shuls and the Bati Medrashas will get up, and they themselves will go up to Eretz Yisrael. Shenemar, as the Apostle says, Ki Kitvar Baharim V'Chai Karmel Bayam Yavoi. As the Apostle says, just like the mountain of Tabor, just like the mountain of Carmel, Hashem came into Paro, will come to the sea. And what do we see? Says the Gemara, Balodvarim Kavah Chaimer. Umat Tavor Carmel, these mountains, Shlobo Al Fisha, they only came for the moment, Lil Mai Taira. Yet, in Ikvaim Beretz, they learn Taira on these mountains for a few moments, and yet they get to have the status of a place to learn Taira, and they get to come up there to Yisrael at the time of the Gula. But can you see? It's about the Midrash, Shekairin, and Barbitz Ben Taira, we learn, and we give Shirin. Alachas Kama, much more so, that the shul, the base medrash is going to go up, and it's going to come to Eretz Yisrael. Darish Bar Kabara, Gar learns the meaning of the pasuk Lama Tarsidon Harim Gavnainim. What is the meaning of the pasuk? Why do you dance around the mountains? So Bar Kabara explains, Yotzabaska V'Amr Lahem, the Baska went out and said to the mountains, Lama Terzu Denim Sinai. Why are you fighting with Sinai, the mountain, of course, where the Torah was given? Kolchem Bali Mumen Atem, you're all Bali Mumen Eitzel Sinai with regard to Sinai. And we see that the mountains, why were they Bali Mumin? If you're a Yair, if you're a Bal Gaiva, these other mountains said, Hashem, give the Torah on me. They get the status of a Bal Mum. And now we continue in Aisin, I say Kabadja, about 8 lines into the very wide lines. You're not allowed to make a shul into a shortcut. My Kabadja, Marava, Kabandra, Kishma. Kabandra like its name. Ma Kishma, what does that mean? Command Amr, like one says, instead of going around, let me go through. So the word Kabandra is a shortcut. You're not allowed to walk through instead of going around a shul. Amr Rav Avua teaches Rav Avua, Maya Shvilme, Kara, Mutter, and this happened in a lot of places by Corona. Right in front of my apartment over here, they had such a thing that there was a path, and then they put a tent there. It became a shul. So if you have a path originally that does not lose its status, and then you could even walk through the shul, and even if it's done as a shortcut. Let's say you entered a shul for a different purpose. You went to learn, you went to daven, and then Motalah says kapaji, you're allowed to leave a different door. You don't have to come out the door you came in and then walk all the way around. You come to daven, Motalah says kapaji, you're allowed to go around. Shenamar, you're allowed to go as a shortcut. How about Dereshar Safa in Lishtach Dereshar Negev? You came in the Safa and you can leave the Negev. You would think, no, you come in the Safa and you have to leave the Safa and go around. No, you're allowed to continue going because it's not the purpose that you went into the shul for. 8 lines to the bottom, the Mishnah concluded that if you have a shul that's in ruins and it starts growing grass, don't cut down the grass, because when you see the grass growing, it's going to cause you grief. You're going to think of the incredible shul that was, and I'll realize it's all destroyed. Don't cut down the grass. Says the Gemara Batani, learned to the price. You're not allowed to take down the grass to feed an animal. Be allowed to take down, you're allowed to cut the grass and leave it there. Answers the Gemara, the Mishnah is also referring to feeding it to an animal. Tana Rabbanan explains the Gemara, have act in a kalos roish in a levis manner in a cemetery. You're not allowed to graze your animals in the cemetery. And similarly, you're not allowed to pass a water canal through it. You can't pick the grass. You got to burn the grass in this place. Says the Gemara, hi, what does it mean covered on mason? By burning that grass, it gives cover to the mason. Rather, must be, it's going back to the first part of the Mishnah, that you're not allowed to act. The first part of the Brisa, that you're not allowed to act in a very kalos roishtika manner in the graveyard, and if you do, God forbid, it could bring. The reason why you should not is because of kavod for the mason. And now we continue the Mishnah with the relevant halachas of the reading of the Torah, the Dalid parashas, the 4 parashas, the special parashas, as we'll see, Shkalim, Zachar, Achodesh, Parah, those 4 parashas which you read right around the vicinity of Purim, Pesach, etc. So says the Mishnah, Rosh Chodesh Adar, Shchalios b'Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh Adar falls on Shabbos, Karin b'Parashas Shkalim, you read Parashas Shkalim on that Shabbos. Chalios b'Seicha Shabbos, if Rosh Chodesh falls out during the week, Makdim l'Shavar, you read Parashas Shkalim a week early, meaning the week before Rosh Chodesh Adar. Umafsikin l'Shabbos Acheres, then you take a break, and then the next week, B'Shniya Zachar, you read Parashas Zachar, Shlishis Parah Aduma, B'Raviyas Achodesh Zelachem, B'Chamishes. Chayz the Chesidrain, you go back. Chol Mafsikin Rosh Chodesh B'Chanikol Purim Tainis Mamidas Yom Kippurim. We interrupt all the different lanings for these big events, Rosh Chodesh Chanikol Purim Tainis, etc. Says the Gemara Tanan Hasam. We learned in a Mishnah with regard to collecting the Machzas HaShekel, which is the reason we're reading the Parsha Machzas HaShekel before Adar. Of course, this brings back memories, of the Gemara in Shkalim that we learned together. On the first of Adar, they would announce, you have to give your Shkalim, the Machzas HaShekel to Beis HaMikdash as we turn over. To Chavtesim and Beis, Valaklayim, they would also announce you have to get rid of your Klayim from the field. Bishlam Alaklayim, this man's I understand, because now's the time of planting, so get rid of your Klayim. Elal Shkalim and Elam, why do we announce about the Shkalim right before Rosh Chodesh Adar? Amar Rav Tevi, Amar Rav Yishayed, Amar Kraz, Zois, Eilas Chodesh B'Chadshai. And what do we learn out from there? Amar Torah Chadesh. Renew, and then bring the karbanos from the new truma, and therefore even the benisan bayakruve in Nisan you have to bring the karbanos mitruma chadasha for the new truma kadminan v'karinan be'echa ba'adar on the first of Adar. We read the parsha Machzas HaShekel, so everyone will give their shkalim, so that a month later when Nisan comes, they'll have the adequate funds to pay for the new karbanos. Keicha deleisu shkalim the mikdash, so people will bring their shkalim to the Beis HaMikdash. But says the Gemara, Keman, who is the opinion that we're talking about, that we start collecting the shkalim in the beginning of Adar, and thereby we read it before Adar? The like of Shimon Gamliel. Dear Shimon Gamliel, Shimon Gamliel says no, only 2 weeks earlier. So if the new carbon is of Rosh Chodesh Nisan, according to Shimon Gamliel, you would read Parashas Shkalim when? 2 weeks before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Purim time. Tanikama says 30 days you prepare. So the Gemara assumes right now that similarly Rosh Hashanah would only require to read Parashas Shkalim 2 weeks earlier. Answers the Gemara, no, Afilu Temer Shimon Gamliel, Kivan Damar Mar, Chamisha Asar Bay Shulchana is Yoishvim, Medina on the first white line, then on the 15th of Adar, already the money changers are sitting and waiting to collect the Masla Shekel, Ubechafei Yoshim and Mikdash, Mishim Shulchanais, Kadminan Bekarinan. So because of the Shulchanais, it's the money changers are already waiting early, so we read 2 weeks before then, which is when? On Rosh Chodesh Adar. So either reading Rosh Chodesh Adar, because that is the appropriate time to start giving the Machzas HaShekel, that you always start everything a month beforehand, like we darshan 30 days before Yantif, or no, even if you only need 2 weeks to prepare, but it's 2 weeks from when the money changers are sitting at their tables. Says the Gemara, my Parashas Shkalim on the second white line, Rav Amar Savs B'nei Yisav Marta Lemes Karbin Lachmi, Ushmol Amar Kisisa, a fundamental machlekes. What is Parashas Shkalim, Sav or Kisisa? Explains the Gemara. Bishlam Laman Damar Kisisa, I know the Karli Parashas Shkalim, I understand. understand. It talks about shkalim, beautiful in the parsha. Elman Damar as Karbani Lachmi Midi shkalim ksivi asam doesn't mention anything. So where is the parsha of as Karbani Lachmi referencing the shkalim? Answers Gemara, no, of course it does. Time of Mai Kid Rav Tevi, like Rav Tevi taught us that we mentioned the Karbanos, and that's the parsha of Karbanos, and that's the reason why we read it in to reminding time to collect the Machzah Shekel. Explains the Gemara, fine. Now we flip the table. I understand there are mentions of Karbanos, and that's why you're collecting the Machzah Shekel to break the money for the new carbon. Hasam, we should the Karbanos. That's a good Rav Tevi. Elaman the Amar Kisi's a Karbanos Miksivi. We're going to talk about the Karbanos. Shkalim Adanim Kisivi. It's only talking about giving the Shkalim for the sockets. So what does it have anything to do with the Karbanos? Answers the Gemara, Kideratani, Rav Yosef Shal Shtruma Sein Shal Mizbeach, the Mizbeach, the box for the Mizbeach goes to the Mizbeach, Shal Adanim Ladanim Shal Bedik Habayis, Lebedik Habayis. Great. So they collected the money really for all three things, for the upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash, for the sockets, and for the Karbanos. Says the Gemara further, or about 8-10 lines into the wide lines. First line is Sisa. Very good. According to Mandam, says Ki Sisa, that Hainu Deshani I Rosh Chodesh Mishar Rosh Chadashim. I understand why this Rosh Chodesh Adar is special. El Mandam, Sabbath Karbani, my Shani. What is special about this Rosh Chodesh than any other Rosh Chodesh? It's the regular lading for Rosh Chodesh, so why are we honing in that it's like special in Rosh Chodesh Adar? It's the regular lading of Rosh Chodesh. Answers the Gemara, Shani Dila Rosh Chodashim, Karishita Binyan Diyayma V'Chabed Rosh Chodesh. On a normal Rosh Chodesh, you eat 6 on the regular parsha, and then we add on 1 aliyah for Rosh Chodesh, Vilu Ha'inna, Kulu b'Rosh Chodesh, but on this Rosh Chodesh Adar, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Adar, we read all aliyahs from Rosh Chodesh. Says the Gemara, I should say better, Kulu b'Rosh Chodesh, meaning that first you read Parsha Shkalim, and then you're going to read for Rosh Chodesh. Says the Gemara, Hanich l'man damar, let's say their parsha is Chayzer. That fits according to Man Damar that says you're going to be going back to the order of the parshas. L'man damar, let's say their Haftarah is Chayzer. Who parshasa the Yom Karina that you always read the regular parshas Hashavua. My Sheni, what does it mean? What changed, excuse me, my Shani, what changed by the Shabbos of Shkalim than any other Shabbos of Chodesh? Answers the Gemara, Shani, Dila Rosh Chodashim Karishita. On a normal Rosh Chodesh, we do 6 aliyahs binyan diyayma, regular aliyahs. B'chad Kari b'di Rosh Chodesh, Eloheina, Kari Tlasa binyan diyayma, V'arba, Kari b'di Rosh Chodesh, 3 and 4, of course, we do not do that. Meisvei asked the Gemara, Rosh Chodesh, Adas Chaliyos b'Shabbos, Kari Parsha Shkalim, Umaftir b'Yoda Kayin. You read Parsha Shkalim, and then the Haftarah is Yodah Kain. So we know that the Haftarah always at some level mimics and is connected to the regular reading of the Parsha. So the Gemara explains, Bish, I know the Haftarah Yodah Kain. So it's all talking about a similar theme. The Dami Law, why? The Siv Kesef Nefashas Erkai. We see he's talking about Machzah Shekel, talking about the value of each and every person. Elaman Damar is Kabini Lachmimi, Dami. How is that any comparable? Says the Gemara again, Dami K'dir Rav Tevi. It is comparable like Rav Tevi taught us that because we're going to bring the Karbanos with the money of the Machzah Shekel. Ask the Gemara further, Meisvei. Let's say that when you're supposed to be reading the Parsha of Shkalim, the Rosh Chodesh Adar, it falls out on a parsha that is similar to the parsha of Shkalim. Bein milafnei, bein lachra, karin noisav, v'kaifel and you read and you double it. Says the Gemara. 1 second. Bisham l'man damar kisisa, ainu de mitzrami ba'uzimna. Kisisa is around the time of Purim, so it can make sense. It can fall out that week. L'man damar sabes karbanim mitzrami ba'uzimna. Is that possible? And now the Gemara has an answer, which is a bit earth-shattering for some people. Answers the Gemara about 15 lines to the end of the Amud. First one is in. L'bnei Marava. The Gemara is referring to those who live in Eretz Yisrael. That in the times of Chazal, they only finished reading the Torah. There was not Simchas Torah every year. It was once every 3 years. So therefore, there's a possibility that Kisisa could also, there's a possibility that Sabbath Karbanili could also fall out around Purim time. Absolutely fascinating. They didn't finish the Torah. Totally different cycle. Not like we read the Parshiyos. They finished it every 3 years. Says the Gemara, Tani Kavasi the Shmuel Araya Rosh Chodesh Adar Shchalios B'Shabbos Karin Kisisa Umaftirim Beyoda Akayin, like we just said. Amar Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Now we get a bunch of dinim about what do we do on Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh Adar Shchalios B'Shabbos Moitian Shalosh Sevrei Torah Karin Bem Echad Binyan Shalyim the Parshat Shavua Ve'Echad B'Shal Rosh Chodesh Ve'Echad B'Shal B'Chisisa Parshat Shkalim. Din number one. So that's Rosh Chodesh Adar if it's on Shabbos. Amar Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Rosh Chodesh Tevish Chalios B'Shabbos. A similar din. Rosh Chodesh Tevish, which is Chanukah. So if Chanukah, Rosh Chodesh Shabbos, what do you do? Maviyin Shalosh Torahs Nachamol. V'Karim Bem Echad Binyan Shalyim the regular leni. Ve'Echad B'Rosh Chodesh Ve'Echad B'Chanukah. Says the Gemara of Tzricha, we needed to teach both these dinim, not just Rosh Chodesh Adar of Parshat Shkalim, but Rosh Chodesh Tevis of Chanukah. Di'it Mar B'Haba Kam Rav Yitzchak Aval B'Hach Rav Tzirlei Damar Parshat Shkalim as Karbani Lachmi, which Tei Torah Sag, you would think you read as Karbani Lachmi, and therefore would suffice with 2 Torahs. K'mashlan that you need 3. V'lei Mahav Lo B'Hach, just say the second din. Chad Mechlal Chaverta Itmar. One we could learn from the next. Let's learn one more line and we'll call it a day. Itmar, Rosh Chodesh Tevish, Chalios B'Chol. What happens on a regular Rosh Chodesh Tevish, Chanukah, like this year? I think Rosh Chodesh Tevish was during the week. What do you do? Because it's Rosh Chodesh and Chanukah. Rav Yitzchak Tlasa Rosh Chodesh B'Chad, and the final Aliyah is Chanukah. Rav Dimi Dimin Chayfa Amar, no. Kari Tlasa B'De Chanukah V'Chad Rosh Chodesh. Of course, that is not what we do. What do we do? 3 of Rosh Chodesh and 1 of Chanukah. Why? Amar Ameni Kavasei Rav Nitzchak Nafcham is Davar, they do 3 of Rosh Chodesh and 1 of Chanukah. Why? They Tadir, Rishino Tadir, Tadir Kaidem. The classical rule that whenever you're saying more common, Rosh Chodesh is more common than Chanukah, and therefore the rules of Tadir dictate that what are we going to do? We lay in the parsha of Rosh Chodesh and then we add on 1 aliyah of Chanukah. Amar Rav Avin Karav Seder Rav Dimi Mistaver. He says the opposite. Why? Migara on the Rav Yishayavai Rosh Chodesh. What caused the 4th aliyah Rosh Chodesh? Helkach Ravi Rosh Chodesh, and therefore the 4th aliyah we have to read by the Mikre. We have to read in Rosh Chodesh. So Machlekes, do we say Tadir? Do we say Rosh Chodesh caused the 4th aliyah, and that's the reason why Rosh Chodesh should be 4th? Concludes the Gemara. Maya ve'Allah. What is the maskana? Rav Yisrael me'im mashkicha Rosh Chodesh. Rav Yosef teaches us we don't concern ourselves with Rosh Chodesh. Rather, we start with Chanukah, then we end with Rosh Chodesh. But Rabbi our mashkina beChanukah beHelchasa. Ein mashkicha mechanukah, which of course is that which we do. We do 3 aliyahs of Rosh Chodesh, and then the final aliyah is going to be on Chanukah of Rosh Chodesh Ikar. We'll pick it up from Itmar in the next year. Amir Tzashem.